First of all, welcome. If you don't know, my name is David Cummings. I'm 4th Ward Councilor. And tonight, felt it was important that we all come here and have an opportunity to review a long-awaited plan that has been delivered for Lackawanna Plaza. And to me, it's important that this is brought to the community so that you all have time to review this. So just a couple of housekeeping items. One, next week, I plan on having another meeting so that you all can have answers to the questions that you may bring tonight. So plan on that. So what I hope for tonight is to give you opportunity for Janice Talley, our planning person, who's going to run through a PowerPoint presentation of the plan for you to give you some understanding of how we got here and what it actually means. Got a couple of placards up here. Mr. Placek is graciously here to attend if there are any specific questions that he may be able to answer. But really, for me, I want you all to present the questions that I can bring back to my councilmates and also the members of the planning board will be able to hear about before they get into their efforts. Because at the end of the day, this is a huge project that is probably the largest development in town, potentially ever. And so it's important, again, I cannot emphasize that everyone here has an opportunity to present your questions. This is not going to be an acrimonious or, back and forth crazy conversation. It's really very informational. And then when we get back next week, my plan is to have enough of the redevelopment plan. Yeah, get a bunch of these printed out so that you can read it, because this is a really hard document to read online and to read it on a computer. So we will bring more of these so that you can actually have a physical document to read. I'm sorry I didn't get them here tonight. That's on me, but I think next week is fine because there's still plenty of communications and opportunities to talk about this. So without further ado, I want to let Janice start off with the PowerPoint. Once she's finished with the PowerPoint, I'll give David an opportunity to speak. And then once David speaks, we will open up to questions that we will take. I want to say questions that we will take. We may not be able to answer all questions, but questions that we'll be able to take that, get answers from the professionals, and then respond back to you within a week's time. And then you'll also be able to come to our next council meeting and present questions that you may have to the council, which I believe is on November 14th. Is that correct? The next council. I think it's the 14th, but you'll know. Yep. So,
yeah, November 14th.
But it's a Monday, not a Tuesday.
Yes. Thank you, David. So do you want this mic? All right. Is this good, Rick?
Yeah, I'll.
Oh, the other thing is this is being recorded, and it will run on
You'll use both.
TV34 probably Monday. So if there's anything that your neighbors or anybody you know feel like you want to see this, they will have the opportunity to be able to view it and see it then as well.
It'll be on YouTube.
TV30 and YouTube.
And
Thank you,
YouTube.
Rick. So Janice, your show.
Okay, thank you, and I am so happy to be here, finally, see all of you again.
I'm sorry, can everyone see?
Can you raise this?
Might need to turn
Oh,
it
you,
on.
if you want the lights out, then you can see it, okay. So, in preparing for my presentation tonight, I went through my voluminous files on Lackawanna Plaza. We started working on this project in 2014. So this is about 9 years in the making. And I think that many of you were here back when we started this in 2014, but I think we have some new faces here as well. So I just want to take a step back and talk about what we're trying to accomplish. What we have here, it's being prepared by the township, is a redevelopment plan. We have many redevelopment plans in Montclair, and most of you are probably familiar with what a redevelopment plan is. It's a very unique document, and it gives the township the ability to go beyond everyday zoning and everyday land use regulation, and put much more detailed and stringent policies and regulations in plan form that apply to the redevelopment area than you could under normal zoning. It does give certain benefits to a designated redeveloper. The township will enter into a payment in lieu of taxes agreement, a redevelopment agreement, with the developer that basically dictates tax payments over a certain period. And that predictability is always beneficial to the developer, but it's crafted so that the township does not lose any money. But from a planning perspective, really to be able to use a broader variety of planning techniques and design requirements than you have under normal zoning is the real benefit to a redevelopment plan. You can't do that under existing zoning. You can't have specific zoning requirements for a particular piece of property. And that's what we can do through a redevelopment plan. So it's a plan and a regulatory document. And because of that combination, it's a product of both the planning board and the council. In this instance, the council worked on this redevelopment plan, and they will be referring it to the planning board for their comment on its consistency with the township's master plan. And that's what we're waiting for, that trigger. I think that'll be at the December 6th council meeting. But that doesn't stop us from reaching out to the public, because we do have a draft document out there that we're trying to get feedback from. So this is not new. As I said previously, we started in 2014. In fact, some of the people that are in this photo here are probably still here in this room this evening. The area was designated an area in need of redevelopment, which is a very important first step for this to be legally doable. It was designated an area in need of redevelopment in 2015. At that point, that's when we started working on the redevelopment plan. The first redevelopment plan we worked on from 2015 to 2017, we had a series of public workshop meetings. We had 4. Then we had a number of stakeholder meetings and a lot of input to develop the plan, and it took 2 years. That plan was completed in 2017. It was presented to the planning board. The planning board had a lot of comments. They sent it back to the council, and at that point, the property owner, who was not David Plasek and BDP Holdings, it was a different property owner, decided that they did not want to proceed to develop the property through redevelopment. At that point, they elected to develop the property under the existing zoning. And subsequently, they submitted a site plan application to the planning board, which you might have been part of at that point. That took over a year. It was submitted in 2018. In 2019, the planning board granted them site plan approval after, I believe, it was 14 public hearings. There was subsequent litigation, and the property owner sold it property to the new property owner, which is BDP Holdings, who has been spending the past 2 years working on a redevelopment concept for this property. So that's how we got to where we are today. And meanwhile, the property has been sitting there, not really contributing at all to the community except for free parking. So I'm glad to bring this to the forefront again and to start work on this project. This property is key. It's 8 acres in the center of Montclair. It's a huge piece of property in terms of your community, because it's obviously in the 4th Ward. It has a lot of historical connections to the township, historical connections to the community. And so we're continuing the planning efforts for this property. It has extensive frontage on 5 roadways, making it a little bit difficult to plan for. There's, and you probably can't see, Grove Street, Bloomfield Avenue, Lackawanna Plaza, the road, a little section of Greenwood, although that's mostly on the adjacent property, Glenridge Avenue, and again, Grove Street. So it has numerous road frontages. The topography is quite unique. I call it a bowl-shaped property. If anybody has seen a bread bowl, it's very similar to a bread bowl, whereas in the center, where the tunnel is, the street Grove Street is about 12 feet above the grade of the subject property. So you have a very unique topographical condition here. Many unique and important historic resources that need to be considered on this property, including the railroad terminal, which was listed on the National Register of Historic Places. And then we also have the issue of the multiple easements. I believe when I was working on the plan, there's 4 stormwater easements, 2 of which are 15-foot wide box culverts that traverse the property. There's a gas easement, and then there's a water easement as well. So a lot of factors to take into consideration. So with the redevelopment plan, we start with a vision. And I believe this vision largely came out of the 2017 plan. We haven't changed it. It's in the plan. It's on the township's website, and we will be distributing it next week's meeting. And the vision is, this plan envisions the redevelopment of the plan area with a mix of uses that enlivens the eastern end of Montclair Center. The plan includes standards for high-quality, pedestrian-oriented design, while respecting the historic character of the original Lackawanna terminal building. Coming from that vision, we have quite a few goals broken down into different subject areas. The overall goals of the plan, and these come straight from the redevelopment plan, are to make the plan area less of a barrier and better connect this 8-acre property, which is right now largely parking, better connect it to the neighboring community, the neighbors and the surrounding community, provide a supermarket, clearly that's what we want to achieve for this area, that will serve the community, create a vibrant place with a mix of uses, promote redevelopment opportunities that create a positive fiscal impact and complement existing uses and streetscapes, provide a regulatory framework to fulfill the vision while accommodating market preferences and reasonable economic factors, preserve and enhance historic aspects of the plan area through preservation and appropriate new development, and coordinate redevelopment to minimize disturbance to surrounding residences and businesses during construction. Then we have a set of land use goals, and those include providing a land use mix that results in a sustainable, positive fiscal and social impact, to ensuring that one of the uses is a supermarket and encourage supportive food-related uses. 3, provide stores and services for local residents and workers, while also drawing patrons from the broader community. 4, provide plazas and public gathering spaces at key locations connected by walkways and throughout the site, to and through the site. Provide mixed multi-generational housing opportunities with a variety of unit sizes, ranging from small micro units to larger 3-bedroom units. Provide affordable housing, including workforce housing. Incorporate historic elements in the project, encourage shared parking in structures that are hidden from view, and create programmable open spaces that provide year-round multicultural and multi-generational events. And then we had a series of design objectives. Require high-quality design and building materials, provide visual breaks and pedestrian connections, provide bulk and setback regulations that allow reasonable development but reduce building mass and minimize visual impact, promote high-quality architectural design that complements historic buildings, create an inviting and attractive pedestrian-oriented atmosphere, enhance the public realm with active ground floor uses and public spaces, minimize street frontage devoted to driveways, parking garages, and loading areas, preserve and adaptively reuse historic features, and establish visual view corridors, particularly those of the historic resources. We have a whole set of mobility and circulation objectives. One is improving safety for all modes of travel and circulation, provide multiple pedestrian connections to and through the plan area, improve connections to train stations and transit services, activate Grove Street, making it less of a barrier and more of a connector, minimize traffic impact through appropriate design of driveways and parking and traffic calming improvements, provide a two-way cycle track along Glenridge Avenue to ultimately connect to the Essex-Hudson Greenway, and maintain public access to the pedestrian tunnel under Grove Street. Environmental sustainability objectives. Encourage economic benefits through green site design, including green solutions to stormwater management and use of pervious pavement. Reduce dependency on solo automobile trips by leveraging the township's transit assets and encouraging walking and biking. Encourage active and passive green building technologies, and ensure that the redevelopment project is compatible with the carrying capacity of all the utilities servicing the area. So, with all those objectives, we worked with Mr. Plasek to see how his concept plan could be integrated into this redevelopment plan, and it could achieve, in a way that it could achieve all those objectives. And I do believe he did use a lot of this information, which came from the original plan, in creating his concept plan. So using those objectives, we came up with design standards, and we have different boards here that show, number one, the first document is the regulating plan, and the second document is almost like form-based code. It has the various height requirements, building setback requirements, and step-back requirements for the project. So going through this plan here, because it's such a big property, we don't want to see, huge single-use buildings. It's going to be broken down into separate buildings, and here you see there's 5 buildings. They may be connected through parking, but essentially it's designed as 5 separate buildings to help break down the mass and integrate it into the neighborhood. The green areas are dedicated open space. There's over 72,000 square feet of dedicated open space in this project. That's a little over 1.5 acres. So you have a main plaza on Bloomfield Avenue, which is right here. We have this area called Station Plaza, which is right next to, it's fed by that tunnel that goes under Grove Street. And it's adjacent to Grove Street. There's the Station Plaza, and then there's a linear arts plaza along Grove Street on the east side of the project. So the plan anticipates 5 separate buildings. They range between 5 and 6 stories in height. That's what is permitted under our existing zoning. The maximum height is 6 stories. That's limit in terms of stories is not is maintained in this redevelopment plan. There's a maximum of 375 dwelling units spread throughout all of these buildings, except for one of the buildings that is intended to be just for retail and office use. But the other buildings will have some residential. A minimum of 135,000 square feet of non-residential space, including 75,000 square feet of office space, and over 72,000 square feet of dedicated open space. So there's a lot of development here, but really this development, for the most part, could be accommodated under the existing zoning. There might be a little bit extra density. When I did my calculations, it's about 70 additional dwelling units than what would be permitted under the existing zoning, but largely this type of development would be consistent with our existing zoning. What's different is this aspect, where we have different height requirements, setback requirements, and step-back requirements for each side of each building as it faces different roads and adjoining land uses. So to try and explain, for each building there's a little box that's associated with that building, and at the top of it, I think it might be easier if I go over here. At the top, for each building, for each side, there's a setback requirement and a setback requirement for each of these buildings. For instance, here, Building A from Lackawanna Plaza has a setback requirement of 30 feet for the first story. For stories 2 through 4, we require that the building be stepped back from the first level, and in essence what we're doing is the plan carves the upper stories away from the first floor to help reduce the massing of the building. And each building is different because the adjoining properties are different and the setbacks are different. So we've really tailored the setback requirements and the upper story step back requirements to the particulars of each side of each building. You'll notice that the biggest step back requirements, which means the carving away of the upper floors, is along Glenridge Avenue, where the step backs are 15 feet, 25 feet, 45 feet from the front of the building, in addition to a 10-foot setback from the property line, so that the building is not overwhelming the street. We do the same thing for the buildings where they adjoin amongst their mews, with this 30-foot setback requirement from the property line, and an additional 5-foot and 15-foot setback requirements for the upper story uses. It's a lot to absorb because there's 5 buildings, and each building has at least 4 sides, with each side having different requirements. But that's the magic of redevelopment. It gives us the flexibility to come up with a very, very detailed requirement for these properties. Very similar to the approach that we used for the Seymour Street redevelopment project. So that's kind of how, I started off with what we're trying to achieve. This is how we're achieving it. And I'm not going to go through page by page through the redevelopment plan. It's 114 pages. There's a lot in there. A lot in terms of process, a lot in terms of requirements. But I think one thing I want to leave you with is what we're trying to achieve here. What are the benefits of this plan? Number one, we do have an affordability requirement. There'll be 74 affordable units, and we have a workforce housing requirement. There'll be 37 workforce housing units. Workforce housing units are units that are affordable to households that make between 80% and 120% of area median income. We have that defined in the plan. So we're coming up with the process to ensure that not only are we getting the affordable units that we get with all of our other projects, but we're meeting the needs of this other housing need in the township. We will get a supermarket. I believe that the supermarket that's planned right now is 40,000 square feet. This plan actually requires a supermarket. You can't do that under normal zoning, but we can do that through redevelopment. The plan requires preservation of historic resources. We anticipate approximately 60% of the original steel stanchions will be preserved in place with this redevelopment plan. There'll be 72,000 square feet of open space, dedicated public open space, as I mentioned earlier. We're going to preserve the tunnel under Grove Street and make that accessible for the public. And they're also providing an extension of the 2-way cycle track bike lane along Glenridge Avenue that will ultimately connect to the Essex Hudson Greenway. So that's an overview, and I'm sure there's lots of questions, but I just really wanted to give you an overall framework for the plan.
Thank you, Janice. Before you get out, David, do you want to come up for a few minutes? Just
Sure.
not only introduce yourself, but
Yep.
give a brief of what you'd like to do. And then we'll get to direct questions.
Good evening. For those of you who don't know me, I know a lot of faces in the room. I'm Dave Plasek, the managing partner at DDP Holdings. I aspire to be a stand-up comedian someday, so this should be like where I thrive and make you all laugh, but maybe I'll save that for another day. I get asked very often, what the heck does DDP Holdings mean? Great question. My wife is Bridget. A lot of you know her. I'm Dave. Last name is Plasek. That's where DDP Holdings comes from. In hindsight, I should have named it something that doesn't have 3 letters that all sound exactly the same, because it gets very confusing when you tell people your email address is dplasek@ddp-holdings.com. And I said that with my email address because I encourage all of you, if you have any questions for me, if you want to get together and get coffee and say hi, shoot me an email. And I'm happy to talk with you. I know there's a lot of people who have taken advantage of that over the last couple of years, and I encourage that. I love meeting people that are in our community. I say our community because if you don't know, I'm a resident of Montclair. My wife and I moved here in 2013. We've got 3 kids in the public school system, 1 left at Nish, 2 at Hillside. If you have kids at Nishway and you really love the pancakes on Saturday morning, I'm the guy that cooked them. If you hate the pancakes Saturday morning, it was the other people that were cooking them. We're very active in our community. We've been volunteering since we moved here in 2013 with a lot of organizations in town. It's not a new phenomenon for us since we bought this property. We're community people. We volunteer, we donate a lot of our time, we donate a lot of our resources to the community that we love. We bought our forever home here. We're not going to move out. And we take a lot of pride in what's going to happen at Lackawanna Plaza. We also own a great portion of the Gateway 2 redevelopment site, which hopefully we talk about again in the next year. Another property in town. We live here. We're going to raise our kids here. You're not going to be able to force us out. I promise you, we're pretty resilient people. But we're very excited at the prospects of Lackawanna Plaza. When I moved into Montclair, we thought, wow, this place could be so much better and so much more. And feel very privileged to have the opportunity and what I think is an immense responsibility to redevelop this site that's been blighted and sitting kind of vacant and underutilized for a very, 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 very long time. I think that was 9, representing each year that this project has been sitting idle, and we've been talking about it and discussing it. So I think tonight is great. I really want to thank Councilman Cummings for taking the opportunity to have this meeting and maybe more meetings like this, to have our community that we all love be informed about what Lackawanna Plaza is going to be. And I think it's very important for the township to hear what everyone's thoughts, concerns, what they love about things to come, what they hate about things to come. It's okay to hate. It's okay to love. I think the council people want to hear everything, and it's great that Councilman Cummings is hosting this. I see Councilman Yacobelis in the back, Councilman Schlager's up here as well. I think that's very reflective of how much the council wants to understand, your thoughts on this plan that they're putting forward. So I applaud all of you for being active citizens, right, and engaged in our community. I think that's a great thing. And I think I'm going to end it at that and maybe turn it back over to the councilman. And we'll take Q&A.
Thank you. I think one of the things I do want to say is I'm very proud and happy that we didn't pass this last week, because none of you would have had the opportunity to see this. And that was the challenge that I had with my councilman, is that this is something that has to be moved properly through the process. And so tonight is the first step in that, because we now have a plan. We know what we're going to be up against. We know, when I say up against, what we're looking at, what has been sent to us. So before I go to Q&A, I do this often. I am in this seat because of one person, and that is Dr. Basler. Your neighbor set up. And I say that because she challenges me often, quietly, sometimes loudly. If you get a text, when you see the caps, you know, okay. So we've collaborated on Sunday to have Rock the Vote in the 4th Ward. Reason why: last election in Montclair, only 1,000 people from the 4th Ward voted. Only 6,000 people in the township voted, and over 2,200 were from the 1st Ward. So if we are going to be represented, you need to tell people you want to be represented. So Sunday, Lackawanna Plaza, from 12 to 4, rock the vote, bring out your friends. We want people to come out and vote. That's what we need to happen, and we're going to make that happen. Our numbers need to increase. I'm specifically speaking to the fourth ward. It was not representative of the history of that ward, the history of the ward that I grew up in. And so Dr. Basco and I and numerous groups on here have been getting together for the last 2 weeks to do that. I think it's very important that that is said tonight, and that I hope all of you, not only all of you vote, if you voted already, great, but understand to our fourth ward residents, we need to get out to vote. So that's it. Now, Q&A. There are a lot of people here tonight. I want to do this properly and make sure that you are all heard. So, the way I've operated, this is not class. If it was class, I could definitely dominate and say, okay, who picked who I wanted to pick, right? So what we're going to do, please raise your hand. I will come to you with this mic. You will have an opportunity to ask questions. Not looking for comments. It's questions. Because in order for the council to know what the community is thinking of, we need to have your questions that we need to respond to. So can we just be okay with that? All right, so I will hop around. Before I even started, I can see over here on the left, to my left, arm was raised first. So I'm gonna walk over here, and please, if you kind of like look at me and raise your hand, I'll know where to go next. All right, so you have a question, ma'am? Please state your name, where you are from, and all that good stuff.
Hi, I'm Stella. I live on Union Street, right across the street. And my question is, at the town council meeting this past week, there was a comment that an environmental study had not been done as part of this proposed plan, and I would just like to hear more about that, or if one is planned. Thank you.
Would that be something, David, you'll be able to answer? Janice, you take that down?
She's right.
You got that down? Anybody else?
Yeah, over here.
Hi, my name is Ann Bisbal and I live over here in the high school. My question is, we're always looking for affordable homes for people in our community, people from here, people's children from here. Now, I understand that a lot of the rules, open that up to outsiders, people from outside Montclair. So are we going to try and find a way to help our own people first? Because that does seem to come up a lot.
I will say that in the plan, that is referenced for a month to do that. It is referenced. Whether that happens is a different story. So that will. Anybody else over here? Oh, this is going to be easy. I got you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Olive, and I'm actually one of your hosts for Sunday, proudly. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here tonight, and as someone who's done a couple of shows at Lackawanna Plaza, something that I never quite could imagine, like growing up here, I never thought that there would be live music there. But there have been, of course, attempts to make use of the space in this interim. And I know, I would like to see more of that happen. So I'm wondering what happens with the music at Lackawanna once this goes down. Is it something that's going to be through Lackawanna? Is there someone that will be appointed to kind of keep that legacy alive? I just don't want to see it end,
So when Janice said earlier, there is in there to keep open space and public space to be used in the future for concerts and things like that. So it just won't be as much space available, but that is the path we will.
My name is Catherine Nicholas. I live at the Montclair Muse, and I'm just wondering about the traffic feasibility study. Has that been done? And what is going to be the impact of all that traffic coming from this development?
what I will say to that, Ms. Nick, is we had an initial feasibility study that was done, that planner receipt gave to us last week or Monday. The numbers are interesting, but yes, we are going to have a much more in-depth look because some of the analysis was done prior to or before the county made the changes on Bloomfield Avenue. And I'll just say anybody who comes down Elm Street now will know that, and once you get to Elm and Bloomfield, just having those parking meters right before the restaurant kind of like eliminates what used to be 2 lanes you can go through. So those are the type of things that this is what is important, because it's the unintended consequences are what we're trying to make sure we look up and find now as opposed to later. So there will be a more in-depth traffic study done as this moves forward. Did you want to add something? Yeah.
It's not directly related to traffic, but it is. So I mentioned that I live here, right? I commute on Elm and Grove Street. And my best guess on most days, I go back and forth 7 times. But what's really something I forgot to mention at the opening is there's 8 other members of BDP Holdings and the design and architecture team that are from Montclair. So there are 9 of us in total that live and work within Montclair and experience the roads in Montclair just like everybody else in this room. And I'm going to let that sink in for a second because I think that's very rare. I haven't seen in my lifetime a lot of projects in towns where I've worked where so many members of the design development team are residents of the community where they're developing. So I just didn't mention that at the beginning. Thought I would take the opportunity to mention that. Traffic is big to all of us too, right? I've got 3 kids that I cart around to Cobra's football practice, baseball practice, maybe basketball, maybe wrestling, and a bunch of other dance recitals and everything else throughout town. So I want to make sure I get there as quickly and efficiently and safely as possible as well.
Thanks, Avery. Yeah, that is something we're going to be looking deeply into. I'm sorry, here you go.
Hello, my name is Melina McCall. I live on Elm Street, so this is very near and dear, literally, to me and my family. I'm sorry. And my question is really for the town. One of the things Janice mentioned was some kind of town utilising its transport system to get people to and from the place. I'm not quite sure what that transport system is, but I would like to ask if the town will actually commit to doing something like that, not just for this, but for everywhere in town. That would reduce our parking and our traffic issues and improve our environment too. So I just want to make sure that the town follows through on that little line in a real way.
Janice, can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I don't know. We're not talking about a shuttle system. What we're talking about is integrating this plan into our existing transportation system. Walk-up connections and easy connections to the Walnut Street train station, the Bay Street train station. We have a bus stop right outside of this facility, improvement to that bus stop. So we wanted to integrate into the existing system, but it doesn't call for a new shuttle system.
So if you look at me, I'm typing, I'm not texting with anyone. I'm literally taking down questions that you all present. Anyone else? I'm getting over here.
Hi, my name is Lana. My question has to do with the school systems. A lot of our new developments, including this one, has apartments. And our school system is overwhelmed. And we have new apartments going up, some fairly new ones that are already in town, like the Sienna, and they come with children. So how is that being addressed within the school systems so that we don't continue to overcrowd the classes and overwhelm the teachers?
So if I understand the question correctly, basically, what is the impact on the school system based on the number of units that come in? Because there are 2 and 3 family bedroom apartments that are apartments. Okay.
I'm Alafin. My question is, I see in the plan that there's the possibility of having up to 56, I guess, Airbnb units, short-term rental units, And is that in the form of a hotel, or is that in the form of, what is that in the form of? Maybe the applicant can answer that.
I think she's talking about short-term rentals,
Yeah.
which, you know,
50%.
yeah, that's, yeah,
56.
again.
Janice, that's the plan somewhere, right?
Oh, I can talk in here, right?
That's just for the video only.
Yeah, the plan calls for a maximum of 15% short-term rentals. Those, I think the discussion was it'd be like corporate suites. And there is a definition in there, I believe it's rental, I don't know if it was rentals for less than 30 days or 3 months.
No,
You checked it's 3 months?
it's over 3 days and up to 90.
Okay, this is that. We left it open in terms of, as a short-term rental, there's an opportunity for the township to address these as a hotel and charge a municipal occupancy tax. That's discussed in the redevelopment plan, and it would, if, as an option, or we encourage that the redevelopment agreement include that financial component. So there's a definition, there's a discussion about taking advantage of the municipal occupancy tax. And those units would count as market rate units, and the affordable housing obligation would be calculated against those units as well.
But I think what Janice didn't say is that this is still in the negotiation stage, so that's where the council, hearing from people here tonight, you know, is that something that is acceptable? These are the reasons why, so that's very important. Thank you for your patience.
That's okay. Before I ask my question, I want to quote the town planner. There's a lot of development going on here, a lot. Why does it have to be a lot of? Why can't it be a little or a medium? Why does it have? But my concern, my big concern as a resident of Clover Hill Place is traffic, the lady over there. Traffic, traffic, traffic. Land use generates traffic. And I want Clover Hill Place and Grove Terrace to be protected against the traffic that's going to be generated by this lot of development. Thank you.
So the question, and I want to expand on that. One thing I want to make very clear, and I said this other day at the meeting, is also Willow Street, R Street, Greenwood Avenue, Pine Street, Mission Street, Hughes Street, Elm Street. So it's not just Clover Hill and Grove that has to be discussed when we get this done. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Deirdre Malloy. My question is regarding the short-term rentals. You answered my question about the delineation of the units. So the question is, has there been a vacancy study done on those types of rentals for this demographic area? And if it's determined if in fact those units are not being utilized, is there a plan to take them offline to have them be regular rentals?
Good question. One of my favorite people in America. We ran together, and James is a good guy.
Thank you, Council Cummings, I appreciate it. I'm also a resident of Clover Hill Place. Can I just ask, if when we do a traffic study, can we please make sure that it takes into account, just as you said, the radius of additional development that has occurred in the town, and also projects that will be coming online, let's say in the next 3 to 5 years. Additionally, can we make sure that that traffic study is independent of the developer and also independent of whatever traffic manager engineered the Bloomfield Avenue redesign? I appreciate it.
Everybody's going to get a comment in. What I would say to your question about that is that that's one of the things that came up in the study that Janice did on Monday, was that this plan was done before the Essex County was done, so we now have to go back and take that into account. We also have to understand that 10 Elm Street to your point of future development, as well as right around the corner on Gates, are things that, yes, that's again the reason why. Pastor Campbell, please.
Elizabeth Campbell in Montclair for years. Will there be free parking without meters, without gates, for those who wish to shop at the supermarket? Because, well, we know in Upper Montclair there's free shopping, there are no gates, and going in and out is easily accessible. So is that a plan?
Thank you. So without the building supermarket, David, is that a question you can answer tonight, or do you have to?
We're not there yet.
Okay. So again, this is why.
But I have heard that comment before. So
right. But I'm saying this is why it's important that we have this meeting, because quite frankly, Pastor Campbell, that's not something I thought about in terms of the things that make. So these are the things that are important moving forward.
Steve, Mr. Plaza, will your project be privately funded or will you be utilizing any federal funds? And the reason I ask that question, it will have an impact on the availability of affordable housing for Montclair residents, or if it's federally funded, Montclair is opened up to at least 100 different towns that would have residents on the waiting list that would be able to apply for these 75 units.
I can't see it. Did you want to respond now, or did you want to?
yeah, we have no intention to take any subsidies.
Okay.
So hopefully that means the affordable units can stay in Montclair for Montclair.
Hi, my name's Nikki. I was just wondering if you could provide us on the plan the layout, I guess, of the parking. If there's a layout for a parking garage.
Yeah, so you really, we'd have to blow it up, and that's one of the reasons why I want to come back next week with the action that you can see it. But yes, so my understanding is, David, correct me if I'm wrong, it is going to have garage parking on both sides. One on the east side, where you think about where the TD Bank is, and then the other side where the was not the Pineapple Express was going towards Lackawanna. So, but there will be garage parking.
Thank you, David, for my question is,
You're on.
my question is if there's a study on tax revenue, what's the projected tax revenue for this project? And I heard 375 housing units. I think I did the math right, 20% were affordable, and then a percentage were workforce, like clarification on that percentage.
So, again, what has been committed to, and I keep looking at this to make sure, at least 20% workforce, 20% affordable, and at least up to 10% workforce. But then again, once you get into the nitty-gritty of financing, which we haven't even gotten to, we have a preliminary, that can change. But I want to be very upfront about the workforce, okay? We currently have workforce for one of our developments, but no one is taking advantage of it. So that is something that I am very curious about myself, because I think the workforce housing, it becomes somewhat of a misnomer. Because if no one's using it, what then happens to it? But I personally, and I've said this, am committed to 20% affordable. Even though you understand 20% affordable does not mean 20% low income. So, which are two very different things. So, but the affordable unit is very important. So thank you.
Thank you. My question is, what is being done to make sure that retail is a little above the standards of banks, cell phone stores, and places to get pink eyelashes? the plan isn't all the way developed, is there a way to see like maybe an example of what he has envisioned visually, or you know, pictures of other developments that are similar?
So tragically, thanks to a bunch of rain, there was a 3D rendering. And unfortunately it was demolished because of some rain. And so there was one, and I don't think, David, that you have the time to create another one in a week, right?
No, we don't. And Norma, Mika is going to come after you for not having a place that sells pink eyelash. That's my 6-year-old.
So I think to your point, Norma, yes, that question again, that's, you know, once it's up and going, we really can't, you know, like one thing about Montclair, we don't have fast food restaurants. We have one that was grandfathered in, and so that's it. So we have more. But in terms of, I think, based on what has been discussed, we are looking at quality restaurants, quality stores, retail stuff, you know, what people will use and shop.
Hi, I'm Rhonda, 7th Grove Terrace. I participated many years ago, I think more menus than there's a place that mentioned in his 9 years, while we've been waiting for this place to be developed. But I remember the master planning process, and I remember a lot of the conversations about what equity development looks like in all of Montclair, and in the 4th Ward in particular, how development here, the density, and the height of the buildings compares to what happens in other wards in Montclair. And I wonder if we can get some information about what development has looked like across all of Montclair, and what it looks like, particularly in the 4th Ward, with regards to density.
That's a question that I got right. You're really asking about development outside of the 4th Ward and what it's looked like compared to what potentially is going here and its density impact in that area. Is that correct? Okay. Thank you.
Hey, David, can I have one thing?
Yes.
Sorry, equity came up, and that's really big and important for us as well. If you don't know my wife, she's an equity coach in town with the Montclair Fund for Educational Excellence. I know a lot of people in this room have been through her seminars and coaching.
One of the architects working on this project is a gentleman from the largest architecture firm in the world, a firm called Gensler. Their principal is a resident of Montclair, Rocco Giannetti. I don't think he's here tonight. But Roger runs the newly created equity division within the global architecture firm of Gensler. When I first met him, all we did was talk about equity and social justice, because Councilman Cummings and I did a webinar back in March of 2021 after we acquired Lackawanna Plaza. And Roger Smith, instead of me interviewing him, he interviewed me, asking what that meant. So we have one of the experts in the industry with regards to equity, inclusion, and social justice as it relates to real estate itself, which is a little bit of an ambiguous, topic. A lot of people don't understand what that means. So we look forward to, in the site plan application process, Roger sharing how the plan that we want to build has incorporated a lot of those fundamentals and principles.
Thank you. And great question, because that's kind of exactly, I don't know David is first, that's exactly what we need to hear from council, because that's more the council to deliver what you're asking for, which is a study of other areas of development compared to this.
David Greenbaum, born and raised in Montclair. I learned how to swim right up where you're standing right now. And both my children also learned how to swim here. So my question has to do with process. There are 3 basic bodies that are involved in this project in terms of our governance. One is the town council, one is the planning board, one is the historic preservation commission. This particular redevelopment plan, I believe, is being authored by and led by the town council, whereas previous redevelopment plans in Seymour were led and managed by the planning board. can someone help me understand how this particular project, and I want to point out too, that Valley and Bloom was a project that was spearheaded by the town council. I just want to understand, how did it come about that the town council became the leaders on this particular project? And then what I also would like to understand too, this is for everybody in our community, for their education. I want everyone to understand the process by which this application will be moving through the community to ultimate completion. That vetting process. These three land use and governance bodies are all participating. So it's important to understand, and maybe David, you can help communicate how these various bodies will work together to achieve the greatest possible outcome for every stakeholder in the community.
Who else has a question? Nobody answered it. Let me be very straight. Starting from the beginning, we're here to have questions presented, and I finished. And we are going to come back in a week with answers. This is about getting questions from the community. That's why we're here. Thank you. She already asked me, make sure that has it.
Right here.
In back of you.
Excuse me.
Yes, okay. Question.
Martin Schwartz. The planning board has recommended 4 stories for the area in our downtown area, and the council refused.
What's your question?
I'm going to get to it. Just give me 1 second. The normal zoning for that area is 6 stories and 67 feet. Why would the town, given that recommendation, allow a plan to be written that advocates 87 feet, almost 9 stories, being called 6, when the effective zoning is 67 feet, and the planning board has recommended an even lower amount of square footage in bulk than what's being presented in the plan? Why would the council agree to this?
First of all, the council has not agreed to anything, because the council just got the plan. And that's very important to understand. That is, we received this last week, and now we're in the process of reading it. And I want people to remember, initially we were trying to pass this last week. It was stopped so that we can have these conversations right now. So there's no nefarious, no one is trying to put anything over anybody. Questions are being asked that have to be presented to us that we then have to answer. Accountability for this, personally, for me, is very important. So, Martin, thank you. Others, thank you. But I want to make that very clear. We are not rushing this through. Nothing has been accepted or approved. It is in the process of us reviewing, and we're here at the community to do that tonight. Yes, ma'am.
David, can I answer a question? Hold on. Yeah.
This is dovetailing off David's questions and comments. I'm a fairly new resident to Montclair. I've been here for 3 years. This project has been on the table 3 times, the amount of time that I've actually lived here. I would like to understand, as a newbie to the town, what the timeline to approving these plans through the 3 committees, and what should we be looking at? I'm sure there's a lot of people in this room who'd be very keen to see this breakdown. I think I'd like a realistic timeline of when the approvals through the town and all the required bodies will be happening.
Janice, you can correct me, but the next step is at our December 6th meeting, we will be putting this up, and then you guys will start reviewing. You have 45 days, correct? And then you go, well, just run it through real quick.
The planning board anticipates discussing this at their December 19th meeting. They'll be doing the presentation. We'll bring the consultants in who helped prepare the redevelopment plan. The planning board's traffic engineer will be there. He's reviewing the plan. So we will have a full-scale report at the December 19th meeting. In the meantime, we will also be working with the Historic Preservation Commission because, yes, we know that they have a vested interest in this property. We want to bring the plan to them and discuss it with them. So between now and when this is adopted, and I don't know when it'll be adopted, we're going to be reaching out to the various land use boards and the public and the community to get input. I can't tell you when it's going to be adopted. That's the jurisdiction of the council.
Yeah, I think realistically, we are hoping to have this adopted by January, and with the events, with the community input ordinances. We have a council meeting on November 14th where you guys can come and present to us directly, all of us. So there will be ample time, but again, this is not going to be rushed, even though people say it's been a blight and we want to get this done. It's not going to be rushed. We waited this long, not that we're going to wait forever, but we are going to do this right, and everyone will have a say. Yes, Dr. Bassett.
Very Ambassador. Mr. Plaza, are we anticipating that this will create jobs for our Montclair residents, both in the development end and in the long term moving forward?
That's a layup.
What's that?
I knew that answer. I read it in the plan. I'm sorry, Rick, I keep you in trouble. So I'm going to give you a layup, David, so people like it.
Yeah. Yes. I made that commitment when I first met you, Mr. Pelham, and there's nothing that's going to change that. I do want to address something that Mr. Schwartz said regarding height, because height is a big issue everywhere. You heard me speak in both March meetings, both in 2021 and 2022 with Councilman Cummings, about the 3 pillars of sustainability. And I should have talked about that in my opening statement as well, but sustainability is not just the environmental component of sustainability, making sure climate change is slowed and all that. That's one of the pillars, but it's not the entire fundamental of sustainability. There's 2 others. One of them is economic vitality. You want something that will survive, right? That it will endure, and you need it to be equitable, right? It needs to have the whole ecosystem and have all of the things functioning for all of the people within the community. And height in Montclair was set at 67 feet. This is Dave Placek, the resident who is a developer and understands this business very well, better than the average resident in town. So I'm putting on my Dave Placek resident/developer hat. 67 feet, I believe, Janice, was set in the early 1900s with the Leach Building in Montclair. The early 1900s, almost 100 years ago, maybe more than 100 years ago. Think back, for some of you, the houses or the apartments you rented in the 60s and 70s and 80s that had 7.5 foot and 8 foot high ceilings. The modern day ceiling height in a residential unit, whether it's a single family home that's being constructed or an apartment now, is 9.5 to 10 feet, right? That's what the market is demanding. In order for things to be economically viable in the future, you need to at least meet the standard for today. For office space, flashback 50 years, it was 9, 10, 11 feet. Today it's 13, 15, 17 feet. Higher floor heights. For retail on the ground floor, it's the same thing. It used to be 9 and 10 feet. Now it's 10 to 20 feet. So in order for any development in Montclair to be economically viable, and for us as a town, as a community, not to end up in the position we've been in for the last 8, 9 years, we need to build to the standard today or exceed today's standard, because the future is probably going to have our ceiling heights rise. I know you've all walked into a house or an office building with cathedral ceilings or tall ceilings, and you're like, wow, this is nice. Right? We all feel that way. To ensure that developments within our community are economically viable, that they will withstand the future, we won't be sitting here in 20 years with a property that's vacant. We need to ensure that it's at least meeting today's standard, and I think that's why we're seeing on all of the properties, not just in Montclair, but across the country, they're a little bit taller than they used to be. And again, that 67-foot standard was set over 100 years ago. Things have changed a lot since then.
You may not be a comedian, but you're pretty good at stuff.
It's not a sales
But
pitch.
the part to Martin's question, that's on the council to adhere to what we have and see where they're negotiating things. So I think this is a very good thing to go forward with.
Hi, yes, ma'am. My name is Rhea Tompkins, and I just have a question regarding affordable housing. Do you have a general idea of what the income requirement will be for people to be able to get the affordable housing units?
Janice, can you, it's a percentage that, yeah.
I don't have the specifics with me tonight. I do know it's less than 80% of area median income. I have a table, it's on the township's webpage with those numbers, so I can get back to you with that. Okay, and I'll bring it to the next meeting.
Yeah, we'll have that for you, to see what is the income that will qualify for affordable housing. Okay. You had a question, I'm sorry, I walked away from it. Forgive me.
Hi, I'm Rena Miller. I live a 15-minute walk from Lackawanna Plaza, and I'm wondering if the most recent study, or if there have been any other studies that have been done on how many residents will be able to walk to Lackawanna Plaza.
I could walk there with Pleasant Avenue, so I'm sure anybody within the city can make it. Anybody else who asked a question that not asked a question? Because I'm going back to people's second questions.
So much. There was a question asked about timeline. My question is related in terms of the phasing. How many phases will there be for the development? And at what phase will the supermarket be built? And what's the project timeline? Not the process timeline, but the project timeline, and all the way to TCO.
Can you answer that? I think the real question is, when's the grocery store open?
No,
Well, I get what you're saying, but yeah, some of you really can't answer this fact until we pass it. But I think
No, not capacity, but TCO means they can start these.
Yeah, it's a great question. Ideally, it's all built at once is the answer, right? I mean, it'll kind of work its way through, but it's one project. We want to build it at one time.
Okay.
The emphasis will be to get the grocery store blocks done first.
Okay.
You know, that's a priority. They want to open as soon as possible. I think as a community, we want them open as soon as possible, so that's the priority.
so. You guys hold him accountable for that because he said it, not the council. It's here.
Gentleman there.
I have a question, what supermarket is coming to Market?
The council has been very, we cannot say, there's an NPL involved. So I think that to answer that question would be inappropriate. So we will, that's one we will not be answering right now, or even next week.
Hey, David, I can say something though.
Okay, hold on, let me.
So,
Did you want to say something regarding her question?
yeah,
Hold on, this
That's-
is what you need. That's just. Who knows, you may want to break news tonight.
Not bad news. I guess two things. Deirdre, to answer the second part of your question, timeline, I forgot to answer that. A project like this is like a 24-month construction timeline. I will say we'd love to start demolition sooner rather than later because of the historic elements. Demolition on this project is a little bit of a surgical procedure rather than a bulldozer knocking stuff over. But 2 years roughly is the time frame to build. Regarding the grocer, again, can't say the name. I want to focus on what's important though. The conversations around town that I've had with so many of you is brand names at low prices. Right? I said it before, I got made fun of by a few people. I love Ruffles, cheddar, and sour cream chips. I want to be able to buy Ruffles and sour cream chips at this grocery store, and I will be able to do that, as will all of you. So it is a major national grocer that sells brand names at low prices.
Why won't you name it? What's
Confidentiality agreements that we signed. But again, the important part is not the name, it's brand names at low prices.
Well, except for the Pat Park that
Will
used to
be,
be there.
that's,
Just what he was telling.
Hi. David Plaisik, I'm just wondering if you can tell us exactly where the supermarket will be located on this property?
Here, building, it's here where the Pat Park was, building A on the plan, that's where the supermarket will be.
I'm sorry.
Can you see?
essentially it will be on the same side where the path mark was.
Here's Bloomfield. This
Just-
is where the supermarket will be inside.
Some parts, yes, are not fully, but that's just a similar location. It is the, yeah, that's called Lackawanna Plaza, but you'll be able to get to it from the north side.
I know, speaking for myself, I will not be able to attend all of the upcoming council meetings, especially where comments will be made. And I know that even if we were all there, we would not all be able to comment. So I wonder if you can tell us what transparent process you could put into place for us to make our comments that we know will be made known to the council and will be considered prior to any decisions about this property.
Well, I think the first step is tonight we are taking down all of these questions and hope to be able to answer them next week, where I'm sure we'll get more questions.
Questions, not comments that I feel about.
Well, that, yes, because if I start taking comments here, right, so,
Is there for us
yeah.
to make comments?
So,
Just ask questions.
right, so I think the fair, and just being only honest with you, outside of coming to a council meeting and making those comments directly, is emailing all of us, so that, we all have email addresses, that you can make your comments known to us. But, that is something that is available to speak to us at council meetings.
So will my comments be read at the council meeting? If I email you, will my email be made public so that it's known what I have said?
No.
Okay, so
I'm not
how can you be assured that our comments will be represented in the...
You're near Clover Hill, right?
I'm not near Clover Hill, I'm not Clover Hill.
Right, so, okay, I'm sure the Clover Hill Association, which is very strong and very helpful, will be more than happy to have someone have your comments read at council. All right, Mr. Cosmo?
Sure. Yes, I'm not sure if that's her question, but yeah.
Whatever the question is, she wants to make sure her comments are heard by the council and the township.
Sure.
Essentially, that's, you want to make sure everyone hears your comments.
Yes, and I'd like to know how other people do.
All right.
I'd like it to, most people want this, but most people not.
Right, so I think one of the things, and again, the good thing about this is that may be something to consider next week where we bring in answers to allow folks to provide comments. Only problem about that is I'm going to be the only council there that's going to be talking to, but I'm sure others will be listening and hopefully they will show up too.
At large?
No, they're all invited. I'm just saying, it's not a council meeting. I'm just having another one of these meetings to answer the questions tonight. And then, what you brought to me and what I'm hearing, people do want to make comments. And so I think that would be the appropriate venue for that. But first for us is to get these questions. So I appreciate that. Is that something I could be in agreement with? Everyone wants to hear comments from everybody?
Yes.
Okay, so here I go committing to something Janice said. You don't have to do that. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Susan Anderson, and I live within about a 5-minute block, 5 blocks away from here.
Can't hear you.
Susan Anderson, and I live about a 5-minute walk away from here. I've been a resident of Montclair since 2009, and I'm really thrilled to hear about these plans and that things seem to be moving forward. My question, a lot of my questions were answered, but one question I didn't hear was during this 24-plus month project, how will traffic be redirected during the project around here. We've had a lot of issues on 4th Street and surrounding streets during the parking garage debacle, I guess, could I say that? And so that's something that I'm concerned about.
So that's a good question. Thank you very much. Janice, something like that, we have to, there's really no way we can answer that right now. Because like, you don't know, we really don't know how that building, how it's going to be built out. But I think that is a very good point of, the streets are going to have to be blocked off sometimes, right? So how do we do that in the least intrusive way on the residents? Something that we have to take consideration. You take questions too. Yes, question.
Good evening, Majida and Majida Sal, and I live on Orange Road. My question, and I think what you said reminded me of something that I brought in here tonight, which was what's happening on Orange Road between Hillside and Bloomfield Avenue with that parking garage, and how little enforcement there has been to follow through with the commitment that that developer had. So similarly, I'm also wondering about parking and how that will be diverted and for how long, particularly for people whose children attend this school and for people who work in this building. That's a big area of concern, obviously residents in the community as well, but making this area accessible given the potential development of what's happening at 10 Elm Street.
So I think the key to that is, as we move forward, the council has to make sure residents are aware ahead of time when streets may be blocked, and you don't get up in the morning and all of a sudden find out, oh, the street is blocked, which I think, has been an issue, and I think
Part of Orange Road was blocked for years.
Yeah, that's something that I think we need to look into as well. So, I'm tired, but this is what I signed up for. So I'm letting you know that I'm going to come around, because I figured that if we finish by 8:30, there will be enough time for people to talk to others individually straight up. So, we're getting near the end. I'm just letting you know. Yes.
Hi, Jason Gleason. First of all, thank you for having us. This is great for public discourse. A quick question. I'll state this first. So I think, I'm sorry, real quick question. I'm wondering if the township would ever be willing to, because I think this would help not only this development, but any future developments or redevelopments that happen, would be willing to put any kind of maybe fact or stat sheet together on its website that addressed certain things like, there was a woman who was sitting here before who was asking about a child per household, stats, right? Because Montclair is wonderful and has, I believe, 1.8 children per household, which is under the national average of 2.1. And in the Montclair Center or downtown, we're actually. Right, you understand my question? Right? So in Montclair Center, we're actually at 0.7 children per unit, which is well under the national average. So if you go on Secret Montclair, or if you've come to a council meeting lately, things can get a little spicy, right? We love our public discourse here, which is awesome. But I think if the township were able to maybe put together some stats and some facts similar to that, or similar to the fact that downtown has 6.5 million visits per year, and how that affects traffic, things of that nature, right?
Thank you.
Cool, thank you. That would be
That
would be wonderful and help.
We're not here to sell the wonderful work of the bid.
Yes.
I appreciate that. Yes.
My name is Leo. Just a question to you guys. Why is it so difficult to get anything done in Montclair?
Ladies first. You should have went first. You have to wait for someone else.
Piggyback on that. But this is a question to council. Is there a process or something that you guys can do to make Montclair more attractive for businesses? Businesses who are doing great things, who are honoring our heritage, who is conserving the environment, putting equity in the front forward, or putting equity forward, what are the things we can do to attract more of that and to applaud companies that are doing that? Because I know as a business owner too, and speaking of other business owners, sometimes it's very difficult to open something here, something that would be great for the community. It's like, make it a lot easier. What can the council do to help make it easier?
So, I'm going to take a lot of heat for this. I go to bid meetings, and vacancy rates in this town are not high when it comes to businesses. When businesses start here, if you have a good business, you do well. And I think your business is a perfect example of that. The opportunity and discussion of why it takes so long to get open and things, that gets into our buildings and grounds and permits. Your business is not the only one. We get questions from homeowners where, hey, I need this, and why do I have to go through this? So you're not alone in that area. But I will always defend the fact that I don't know a better town where you can open a business. You got all these train stations, access to you, walking, driving, I'm not going to say parking, but there is no doubt that businesses want to be here. I think in our bid meetings, Jason knows that businesses want to be here, but like anything, nobody's going to be happy, no matter what. There's going to be questions that are brought, but I will say that it is important for you to know that when you do bring those issues, I'm not going to say complaints, the council does hear them. Whether or not we move fast enough on that or fast enough to make you and the other folks happy, that's another question. But the question noted, so is our current interim manager here to say that he will make sure that any of those things are done and done well.
First of all, that's wrong. I have to say it's active.
Active, right. I just want to say yes. But I do want to, as Mr. Plaza acknowledge that we do have Councilor Peter Yacovellis here, as well as Councilor Robert Slater. Councilor Slater is on the planning board, so she's specifically here to have these questions, hear these questions. And our acting manager, who goes to bed at 5 o'clock every night, decided to stay up tonight.
I'm an old man, I get it. Just to answer the parking question, very soon I think you will be pleased with the additional parking that's going to come in Midtown. I'm not going to give you a date, but it's imminent. Once we have the final inspection and receiving a certificate of occupancy that I confirmed before I came here will happen at the beginning of next week. I think that parking will be taking place in Midtown. As far as small businesses, I may have a surprise for you in January. I'm working on that too. An office specific to small businesses, okay? And that's more just specificity. Could you say what hasn't been done in Montclair? You said we can't get anything. Could you be more specific?
You don't have to be specific. Right? I said it in the beginning.
All jokes aside, though, if it's something I can help you with, I'd like to know if it's specific.
So I said at the beginning of the meeting that tonight we're going to be taking questions because I've seen council meetings, you've seen council meetings, and it's very important that we're not going to do that. And Tyrone, I let him know that you're here for PAL. And not for, traffic, anything that happens with us, even though you have your whistle. I appreciate that. Ladies and gentlemen, I know there are still questions remaining. You know our email addresses. You can send those questions to us. I have a plan to next week be at town hall, same time, with questions that will be answered as best we can. I say best we can because some we may not be able to answer, but we will answer the ones that we can. I'll be working with Janice all week. Thank you so much for coming tonight. Really appreciate it. Look forward to seeing y'all next week. Please show up Sunday, Lackawanna Plaza to vote.